through that and still stay sane. So honestly, the local trips have been my new normal. Because before, if you would have asked me if I wanted to like travel around the US, I would have been like, child, no, not if I can go to another country. No. Right. And now I'm like, I visited New York, I visited Philly recently. We're planning a trip to go to North Carolina for MLK weekend, to Charlotte. So it's like my new normal now is like finding different ways to connect with my Passport Pop-In community, as well as, you know, exploring places in our own backyard.
Awesome. Hey, welcome. Hi. We're gonna start that again. I gotta do my whole intro. I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right. Hey, welcome to Travel Tuesday Happy Hour, where we interview dope people doing dope things from around the world. Today we have an amazing guest. Tell us who you are and what do you do?
Hi friends, I am Akeia Spring. I'm the owner and founder of Passport Pop-In, a Black travel brand that gives you all the travel vibes that you need. And I'm super excited to be here today with you, Paige. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. So, Passport Pop-In, what made Passport Pop-In for you?
Well, like, how did it start?
Yeah.
So I initially wanted to do like a travel, like Instagram, where I just show all the people, all the cool things that I do when I travel, and just showing all the people that I love, like within my network, how much I love to travel, how I travel. And so one day I was just randomly sitting at home and I was like, Passport Pop-In. I was literally just laying on my bed and out of nowhere, like the name came out of literally the sky. So I jumped up and I was like, that's it. I, put a name to it finally with what I wanted to do. And then I immediately started building a website, made an Instagram. And here we are today, January 2021.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so how many trips, have you counted how many countries you visited so far?
It was supposed to be more. Unfortunately, for 2020. I've been to about 5 or 6, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah, but a couple places I've gone more than once, of course, because I just love them.
Okay, so you got a couple stamps on your passport.
Just a little bit,
I'm gonna check your Passport Pop-In card if you ain't got no stamps now. You know what I'm saying? So what got you in there, like, really start traveling? Because I mean, like I said, for me, traveling started as a kid. Going state to state, going to visit family in Haiti. So what really started traveling for you?
Yeah, I think I was first bit by the travel bug for real when I did a study abroad program the summer after my freshman year at Howard. And I was a bio major in a Spanish.
Nice flex. Go ahead.
What did you say?
Go, yeah, HBCU flex. Go ahead.
Oh, I gotta drop the illustrious Howard. Listen. I would not be here today if it wasn't for that school, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I brought it up was because I literally legit would not have been bit by the travel bug as much as I was if it weren't for like my experience, going to Howard. So initially I was a Spanish minor and a bio major. And I found a program to study abroad for the summer, the summer after my freshman year, to go to this cute little colonial town in Oaxaca, Mexico. It's literally the cutest city. And I found this study abroad program. It was a month-long program. It was the first time I had ever taken an international trip ever, and let alone, flying by myself internationally. So I was just like, you know what? F it, let me do it. Let me, get my little Spanish credit for school and, immerse myself in a new experience. So on the study abroad program, I was like truly, truly bit by the travel bug because it was just such an amazing experience, like I'm from a super small town in South Carolina. So moving to DC to go to Howard was like a big jump for me in general. And I just knew like I just needed to see the world. So just, pushing myself to experience this study abroad trip really, really just immersed me into traveling and just how much I just love seeing the world. So that trip really just, bit me up with the travel bug. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So question, you mentioned moving to Howard. Like, where are you from and what made you choose Howard of all schools?
You don't know where I'm from.
Nope.
I say that to anybody that asks because I'm from a super small town in South Carolina. It's called Moncks Corner. Okay. And it is my humble beginnings, my small town roots. It's like 20 or so minutes from Charleston, if you're familiar with Charleston.
Right.
So yeah, that's where I'm initially from. And I picked Howard because I knew I didn't want to stay in state. And I was interested in exposing myself to an HBCU because I've had family members that have gone to HBCUs
Mhm.
and they just, swear by an HBCU experience. And now that I've had one, I do too. And I just was like, you know what? I want to go to an HBCU. I want to get out of South Carolina. So I was just like, you know what? Why not Howard? It has like this, pretty good reputation. And like, it just seemed like just the best fit for me. It's the Mecca. So I was like, okay, let's do Howard. Okay. So yeah, that's how I picked it.
Nice. So what is the and from I went to PWI. So what is the HBCU experience? Because from a PWI perspective, we hear a lot of the horror stories, but sometimes it's like you have to kind of go through something to enjoy the experience. So like if you could kind of like maybe elaborate on your experience
Mhm.
as to what an HBCU experience really is.
Yeah, not really sure what horror stories you heard. That's actually really sad, but personally, I think an HBCU experience is 100% necessary for people of color.
Okay.
I 100% would not be the woman that I am, comfortable in my womanhood, comfortable in my blackness, if it were not for my Howard experience. 100%. And I think it's just the beauty of being in a space that was specifically created for you to be excellent.
Mm.
And like, yeah, it was like, liberal revolutionaries that helped to found Howard initially right after, the Civil War and everything. But the purpose of that space is to elevate us and for us to enjoy our excellence among each other. And that's legit what I got across the board. I go to schools that have building names like Douglas, like little things like that, where, walking around on campus, you're constantly reminded that people that look like you have achieved excellence.
Mm.
And I think it's just so amazing just being in those spaces where you're pushed, you're encouraged. It's like a camaraderie around all the people that go to that school because we all here together. It just, I don't know. It's top two and it ain't number two. HBCU.
Wow. That's a real HU. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, I mean, but I've heard that too from any person that I've talked to from any HBCU. Like,
Okay.
it's legit like a safe space. I enrolled in a class called the Psychology of the Black Experience, like
Mhm.
things like that. You know what I mean? And I just appreciated that it was an education tailored to making sure that I knew my blackness and was comfortable in it, and that has taken me 100% far.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
let's also talk about the fact that you went from this you don't know where I'm from small town to DC big city. You a big city girl now. So how was that experience like shifting from your town to DC?
Yeah.
Because outside of just being in Howard, there's a whole lot going on around you. So what was that
Yes.
experience like? Because keep in mind that's also traveling too and experiencing something different. So how
Yeah.
was that experience for you?
Well, like I said, even when I was back home growing up, I lived there for all throughout my childhood. And I just knew even then, like I just wanted to experience more. And I feel like when you grow up in a small town, there's like different categories of people. There's like maybe one category who's like, I love this town. I want to raise my kids here. I want my kids to go to my same high school. I love this place. I was in the other category where I was like, this is cute and all, but this ain't it for the rest of my life, okay?
Okay.
And I just remember feeling such a pull, like even in high school before I graduated, I was like, I gotta get the up out of here. Like just feeling enclosed and like cramped in,
Was it
I just
because
wanted more.
it was a small community or it was kind of mixed race?
Um, it's mostly white. There's a good bit of black people there, of course, but I think it was just the aspect of there's not really much to do. I just always have enjoyed the hustle and bustle of being in a city
Okay.
because just like you, when I was younger, we would take road trips up here because I actually have family in the DMV area.
Okay.
So we would actually, drive up here and I would experience like bigger cities. And I just knew like, dang, like I gotta get out of here. It's like so much more to do, so much more to see. And it's not to, shit on my small town upbringings because I love it. I appreciate it so much. But I just knew I wanted more. And so I found DC and
Tasted the city life and was like, "Ah, I want to go back."
right?
Gotcha,
I just
gotcha.
needed to go.
Okay, okay. So, moved to DC, went to Howard, and really enjoyed the experience there.
Yeah.
And then did a study abroad program. Now, that study abroad program, for those listening, like, tell us how did that process work for you? Because I know I'm not gonna lie, I beat myself up all the time for not doing a study abroad program. But tell some of our listeners and viewers, like, how did the study abroad program work out for you?
Oh, it was great. Like, so initially, so like I said, I was a Spanish minor at the time. And it's crazy because the experience changed my life so much that I came back and I changed my major. Like it was
Crazy.
yeah. So I was a Spanish minor, and there's this guy named Walter Hosey. Absolutely love this man. And I shout him out anytime because he contributed to like how my life changed as well. And we're still in contact today. He is the director of the program that I actually did with the study abroad to Oaxaca. And he would always come back and forth to DC to promote the program because he actually moved to Mexico. So it's like
Oh,
this tall black guy living among, local Mexicanos in Oaxaca, Mexico. And he had studied abroad there several times when he was my age. And so he just said, he turned like 40 years old and he was just like, you know what? I'm done with this ghetto ass country. I got to move. And so he moved to Mexico. And so he would always come to Howard to promote it. And so when he came to promote it, he gave us all these different ways that we could, pay for the program. And so I applied for a scholarship through my Spanish department, and I was able to go on the trip. I got there. It was literally the most seamlessly planned trip, study abroad trip ever. He
mm,
made sure that we had our housing, we had food, we had meals prepared daily by our host families. Each student would actually stay in a host family. And so multiple students would stay within one family. And I was assigned to Mama Luz. And she was this cute little old lady, and she would make us, tortillas, fresh tortillas, and like all these different fresh foods, Mexican foods. And it was just like such a beautiful experience because it really helped us get immersed inside of the culture. And so, on top of having that hands on experience with the culture, with living with the host family, which I 100% recommend, of course, it's probably harder to do, of course, because of COVID, but that immersion is so essential when you're traveling. And of course I can get into it later on, but there are other ways even with COVID to try to immerse yourself even more into the culture, since maybe you don't want to stay with a host family like I did. But yeah, we stayed with the host family. We did our Spanish classes every single day throughout the week, and that helped us to get our credits because it was a study abroad.
mhm.
And then on the weekends, he would have like excursions set up for us. So it was my first time, little 19-year-old Kia climbing mountains in Mexico, doing zip lines, like completely out of my comfort zone. And so I think just being in a space where I was forced to try things that were new, that was the first time I really felt the pressure, I guess, to try something super new. I mean, I guess going to Howard too was, but this was 100% like left field for me. I was international by myself, zip lining, all this other stuff. So it was a necessary experience, I think. So anyone who's listening that's considering studying abroad or just, trying to travel to a foreign place when it's safe to travel to a foreign place, definitely do
So, from a young lady coming from a small town, going to the big city, going to Howard,
it.
going to Mexico, what did this do for your perspective on life? Right?
Yeah.
I know it created the bug that just made you want to travel. What did it do as far as perspective? Because a lot of us just know big city, little city, big city, little city. Now you've gone over the border, got a passport stamp,
Yeah.
and now your mind is blown. What did that really do for you?
It
Um,
changed
as perspective
everything.
wise.
Legit changed everything. It really put into perspective that our freedom to travel now as Black people, it's like I'm so passionate about sharing how much I love to travel, because this is not something that has been a privilege for people that brought us here in the first place. Like our ancestors, half of my family, none of my family actually has a passport.
Mm.
All the older people in my family, none of them have a passport. And so, me being privileged and blessed enough to have that experience, to have the freedom to go to another country and experience the world outside of my own borders, it's just it changed everything for me. I'm like, there's so much more to life. And even within like the few places that I visited, I'm still hungry to see more places because the world is, it's so much bigger than we think it is. Like, I don't know. I just love it so much.
Okay. So I'm gonna move forward. Like, what keeps you wanting to travel more?
Hmm. I'm pushed more so to travel for like therapeutic reasons.
Okay.
Like before COVID, I was traveling um like pretty much every 2 months or so
Mhm.
because I was living abroad for some time and I was in a long distance relationship. And so I was like constantly traveling to meet up with him, or he would come there and we would travel around where I was. And then when I moved back to the States, I'm like, the only way I'm gonna move back is if, we're taking consistent trips. And so we put that into action. So we were traveling very, very frequently. And I think it's just the idea of traveling to just not get stuck in a rut. So that's literally my purpose of traveling, to do that and to just really get immersed in other cultures and learn new things, see new things. So those are things that really motivate me.
Okay. Okay. So you mentioned you was living abroad, as well as the whole idea of immersing yourself into culture. Like now, in a time like this, or in a time in what early March, it wasn't a thing of of reality, right? So like,
Yeah.
so before we go into that conversation, where were you when the world shut down? Were you stateside or were you somewhere else?
No, I was here. I moved back to the States in 2018. So I was here. I was living in Maryland at the time.
Okay.
And I had a couple trips planned. So I'm like scrambling around, like, can we still go? Can this still happen? And I'm stressed out. And so of course, COVID hit and it's like, yeah, that was a slap in the face, honestly.
So how did that impact you? Like how, I know you just mentioned travel, but like you also mentioned travel was like therapy. So,
Yeah.
how did that impact you socially, financially? You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
don't need bank records or nothing like that, but
It,
I mean, how
it
did it
impacted
impact
me a
you?
good bit. Like before COVID hit, I actually had 3 trips planned for Passport Poppin'. And so with Passport Poppin', I host group trips as well as like posting, travel things on IG. And so part of the main part of the monetized side of Passport Poppin' is the hosting of group trips, because I just love being the homegirl that like takes all the girls on girls trips, traveling around. And so COVID really, really impacted that, because initially when it hit, the government was very unreliable and continues to be unreliable in terms of their response to the pandemic. So initially when we started hearing things of, oh, it might be shut down, oh, it might not be, I'm like putting in the group chat, like, oh, we'll be fine by April, because the trip to Panama was in
Mm,
April. And I'm
mm,
like, oh, we'll be fine in April, this will blow over, everything will be okay. Child, April came, and I'm like, you know what, y'all, we're just gonna postpone it. Then I'm like, okay, months keep rolling by, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna have to cancel it and refund y'all's money, unfortunately. And then the same thing happened for the trip that I was planning over the summer to Nicaragua. Same
mm,
situation.
mm.
So yeah, it definitely affected me financially and mentally too. Like you said, like with doing this podcast, you were doing it because we're in this pandemic and you were interested in like finding new things to do and different ways to reach out to your network. The same thing happened to me. I was just like, you know what, I gotta find a way to keep it going, because when situations happen like this, you can either flop or finesse. And so I chose to finesse. So it's a lot more virtual these days, of course. So I'm doing like Travel Tea Tuesdays on IG Live to, keep up with like the travel aspect and just enjoying myself more virtually while still trying to get that feel of, travel.
Okay. So you kind of led into like your new normal. So like travel teas, doing a lot of, it sounds like you did some self-reflection and realized, hey, look, I'm not gonna let this keep me down, but I want to just keep moving. What else have you
Mm.
done? Because once again, this was a time for us to sit back and pay attention to our demons, right?
Yeah,
Face to face.
that's so real.
Have you were you able to kind of overcome some of your past I guess, demons and kind of move forward and grow?
Yeah, definitely. So because travel is therapeutic for me, I still have been luckily able to do little things to still get a little taste of the travel that I love. Like, road trips are a big thing now and like domestic travel. So I've been using that as an opportunity. I actually flew back home and was home for like a month,
Okay.
like like around May or so. I was home for like a month and just enjoyed, being around my family and just the small town vibes because it was just a lot going on here and I just needed to get away. And I just needed to get away. So I was able to do that and still stay sane. So honestly, the local trips have been my new normal.
Okay.
Because before, if you would have asked me if I wanted to like travel around the US, I would have been like, child, no, not if I can go to another country. No.
Right.
And now I'm like, I visited New York, I visited Philly recently. We're planning a trip to go to North Carolina for MLK weekend, to Charlotte. So it's like my new normal now is like finding different ways to connect with my passport pop-in community, as
Mhm.
well as, exploring places in our own backyard.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier going to HBCU gave you a sense of pride, a sense of self-worth, sense of
Yeah.
right? As a woman traveling, how do you carry the baggage of the way Black women are treated here with you when you travel,
Hmm.
or because of that nurturing of an HBCU, it allows you to kind of see the world from a different lens and not allow I guess the baggage of how we're treated here carry over with you when you go. You ain't got to check an extra bag because somewhere
Right.
else.
Right. So it's hard because I am an empath. And so anytime things are affecting other people, even at a global level, I feel it. So, with that, as well as my HBCU upbringing, I definitely internalized the struggles that all of us as women and all the other marginalized communities experience. I internalized that too.
Mhm,
And that still is heavy ass baggage.
mhm.
But luckily, like you said, with my HBCU upbringing and with my strong community that I have around me, my strong circle, we literally confide in each other. We make sure that we're good. We check on each other. And so those things, they are difficult to deal with as a Black woman, but I'm grateful that I have a circle around me that I can confide in and, you know, take some of that baggage off after some time.
Okay.
But luckily, traveling as a Black woman, I've been lucky to not visit destinations where I have an experience of feeling unsafe or uncomfortable. If anything, I'm like praised as a Black woman.
Okay.
Okay, linda, morenita. Oh, esas trenzas. Like they're always like
And
so
you're
OD
fluent in Spanish, so
all
they
the
always
time.
question them like, "Hold up, you're not from such and such, you're not from such," because like I think a lot of times because you have certain features, your facial features that don't make you look just black, right? I don't have any like I went to Ghana and I have this scar and they're like, "My brother, what tribe are you from?" I'm like, "Nah,
Right.
my sister beat me up when I was little." You know what I mean? And so it's amazing to see how, and I'm glad you mentioned that because like we are so praised not when we travel versus when we're home. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And it's
I
so
have gotten more love abroad. Yeah.
and it's so refreshing because people to be like, "Oh, you're not American." I was like, "Why?" I was like, "You don't look American." I was like, "Okay." That's the first time I've heard I don't look American, but
Right.
also here I don't look Haitian. I'm not just black. You know what I mean? So it's good to hear that you've had these positive experiences, and the
Gratefully,
fact
yeah.
that you're able to also speak different languages also help you too because you can go different
Mhm.
places and just not speak English so that you don't get caught up with people scamming you because you're
Right. Literally. You ain't gonna get me. At least not in a Spanish speaking country. I have not yet. That was actually my plan too for 2020 to try to venture out to a country where I don't speak the language because I've always been just in my comfort zone of like a Spanish speaking country or an English speaking country. So
See, I'm the opposite. I'm in countries I don't learn the language. I don't know the language at all, but I'll learn
mhm.
how to say thank you.
Yeah,
I'll learn how to say where can I get. But and that's really important because a lot of times when we travel, we're treated with the energy we put out, right? And so it sounds like your experiences have given you such a open mind to not go out with like a negative thought of, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, they're gonna do something to me versus, all right, these are my people. I can speak the language, I know the
Okay.
culture, and you keep it popping, right? So speaking of popping, right? What can you give? What would have been your tips prior to COVID? Say like get somebody a Kickstarter passport popping guide. Like, I know for me, it's really don't wait on your friends because
That's real.
this trip ain't never gonna happen.
That's
So
real.
if you don't mind, give me your pre-COVID passport popping guide to travel, just top 5 tips, and
Yeah.
then augmented or you're adjusted with COVID.
Yeah. So prior to passport popping, some of these might bleed over into what I would still recommend now, just altered a little bit. But I'm very big, like I've already said 10,000 times in this conversation, I'm super big on like immersing yourself in the local, culture and language. So my trips and the trips that I host with Passport Poppin', all of them are like with a locally owned and run Airbnb. We, book locally run tours and experiences. And so that's something that's super important to me. So my 100% my travel tip is to immerse yourself. You ain't going all the way over to them people country to be doing the same shit you would be doing in the United States, okay? So immerse yourself. That's my number one tip. Let me see what else. Definitely get money ahead of time. Get some money in cash and only spend in the local currency. That's 100% something that I would recommend. I don't, even if it is a destination, kind of like Cancun, that does take dollars, get pesos. And, I just personally think that, the money goes better if you have the local currency, you're not scammed, you're not given like the American tax, trying to get finessed if you got if you have an American dollar. So definitely get the local currency. Um, and I guess these are things that you can also do, past COVID too. So I'll think of some stuff that you can do after COVID. But um, what was I saying? So local currency, immerse yourself, try to learn some words, kind of like you said, try to learn those emergency phrases in the local language wherever you're trying to go.
I gotta say baño, uh, cerveza. Um,
Important things, right?
there you go.
Let me see. You put me on the spot. I wish I had more time.
You got time. You got time.
Let me see. I'm pulling a blank, and people will be asking me for tips all the time. Um, oh, this is so
Well, you
awkward.
can we can start going with your augmented COVID related stuff.
Okay. Um, Definitely pack extra masks. Definitely pack extra masks so you can change them while you're on the plane because apparently like there's a set amount of hours when the mask is, and I ain't no CDC official so don't quote me, but
Mhm.
I've heard you should bring extra masks because after a certain amount of time, the mask isn't as
That's
effective. So definitely bring masks, bring of course wet wipes and sanitizer, and try to book with an airline that does not book the middle seat.
mm,
And it might be a little difficult, but I
not
know a
a lot
lot
of
of
those left.
right, right. And my favorite airline, I just flew home over New Year's. My favorite airline, Southwest, they just started, booking with the middle seat. So both flights were packed,
Hmm.
which is frustrating. Um, I personally prefer the aisle
Mm.
to anything, and I recommend the aisle as long as it's not like a super duper long flight and if you're sitting next to people you don't really know. I prefer the aisle. um what else?
I mean,
um
that could be it for now. That could be it
okay.
for now. You know what I mean? Um, and so, do you have like top 5 bucket list of countries that you'd like to visit?
Yes. I've been dying to go to Bali. I've been dying to visit I was dying to visit Cuba. I finally went, and we can get into that later, but
Oh, we could talk about that now. Let's talk about.
now listen.
So let's talk about Cuba.
Child, Paige, how much time you got?
We got time. We got time. Let's talk.
So, Cuba, I'm not here, disclaimer, I'm not here to discourage any precious souls that would love to venture to Cuba. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm just here to give my own personal experience. And additionally, at the end, I'll give some tips as well so that you don't have the experience that I had. So Cuba has always been on my bucket list. It's always been a place I've wanted to visit. And for the longest time, I would try to do all the thing of planning, and then I would get discouraged because I'm like, no, we can't actually go. So I was scrolling one day and I found a couple followers on Instagram, which is that's why I love Instagram. It's like a community where, of course, you're seeing people cute beach pictures and stuff, but like people really are here to help you. And so I was chatting with a couple girls on there who were just saying that, oh, we actually just got back from Cuba. It's definitely doable. You can do it. Da, 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 da. So I'm like, all right, bet. Like, I'm down. Let's do it. And I was told prior that you need a visa to travel to Cuba. And it's super easy to get, right? It's super easy to get, though. It's not like a normal visa that you would think. So when you're traveling to Cuba, you need to get a visa. You can either order it online, you can either, register online and get the visa sent to you in the mail. But of course, you would need to do that weeks prior to your trip. Or you can do what we did and you can go just straight to the airport. And the day of your flight, you can get your visa. So pretty much all the flights to Cuba go from Fort Lauderdale or Miami. And so in the Fort Lauderdale airport, which is where we were flying with Southwest, which made the process 100% seamless. Right at the counter where you're getting your boarding pass and checking your bags, you can register for the visa and get the visa, and then you just take it with you. So cool! I'm telling all the good positive stuff, and then I'll leave all the negative stuff towards the end. So we get our visa, we get our boarding pass, and I'm just like, is this it? Is this it? Because I'm really waiting for like people to pop out like, psych, you ain't going to Cuba. But everything was super seamless. Like we got to the airport, got our visas, got our boarding pass, checked our bags. Literally the same process as, boarding a regular international flight, just except you would just have to stop and get the visa. So we board our flight, shit is sweet. We land, and in Havana, it's a smaller airport. So you actually land on like the runway, which is so cute. I think that's so chic. So we get off the plane, and we're landing, we're walking into the airport. And so you present your visa, you present your boarding pass and everything. And I thought it was going to be like a super long interrogation. Like, is you the FBI? What you doing in Cuba? But it was none of that. It was super seamless. So we check, we go outside, we get some cash exchanged, which I don't recommend. Don't get it exchanged at the airport. And also another tip for when you're traveling to Cuba, apparently your money goes farther if you exchange your money in euros versus dollars. So before you leave in the States, I didn't do this. We just got, dollars in cash. But I heard as long if you take euros and then exchange the euros in Cuba, you get more for your money. So yeah, we get there, get our money, get our taxi, go to the Airbnb. And another thing with Cuba, when you're booking your flight, you actually have to elect a specific reason for why you're going to Cuba. So there are 12 reasons. And so we chose the option for people in support of the Cuban people. And you also have to select that for when you're booking your Airbnb as well. And one of the ways to support the Cuban people is to stay at a casa particular, which is like it's an Airbnb essentially. And so you're staying in someone else's home, and it could either be with them there, which is what we did for the first Airbnb we booked, or it can just be like a normal empty Airbnb where you have the whole place to yourself. So we got our taxi to our casa particular. We met our host mom. She was super duper sweet. Love her so much. And everything was sweet, for a couple days. Everything was nice. We were supposed to be there for like 5 or 6 days. Super excited. Going to these cute little Cuban restaurants. The food was super duper cheap. The drinks were cheap. Yada, yada, yada. Then we get to like day 3 and realize we are running out of money. Right. So prior to Cuba, I called Western Union because I saw online that they actually have a Western Union in Cuba. Cool. Call them up. I'm like, hey, if I get to Cuba and I run out of money, is it possible to have, a family member transfer me money to Cuba? Like, oh yeah, that's fine. You can do that. It's all good. Right. Have you been to Cuba?
I've been to Cuba, but there are certain states that are flagged from Western Union. So yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, we good. So then we're in Cuba. And so, of course, there's no Wi Fi. So we had to get a bunch of Wi Fi cards. Luckily, our Airbnb host, she had like a whole lot of them. So we literally like cleaned her out of all her Wi Fi cards because I had to keep calling my mom because I'm like, Ma, like I'm stressed out. We need money from Western Union. And so it was like a whole process because for people that haven't traveled to Cuba, when you get the Wi Fi card, Wi-Fi isn't as accessible. It's not like we have it here, like where it's just in your house. You have to physically go to a Wi-Fi spot. So the one by our Airbnb was a little park, 2 or 3 blocks away from the place. So we would have to leave the place, go to the park, sit in the park, call my mom on WhatsApp. And I asked her to transfer money through Western Union. Cool. She goes there, she does it. We think everything is sweet. She gives me the code. We had to wait till the next day because by the time we were able to coordinate everything with her, time had already passed. So we weren't able to. So while she's at the Western Union, we're waiting for the money to come through the next day. They flag it because apparently she needed to fill out some extra paperwork and she must have written the wrong thing or checked the wrong box or something. So they think I'm a Fed or something. So she had to redo the process. We finally get to the Western Union, use the code, and they're just like, "Oh, sorry, we can't help you. Because you can't pick up money as a U.S. citizen. You legit, if you ever plan to go to Cuba, take all the money you will need from start to finish. I'm talking like if you're gonna stay for like 5 or 6 days, like we were, I would say max take 1,000 per person. I'm sorry, not max. At the minimum, just to be sure, take 1,000 per person, just to be sure,
Yeah.
because you need money for food, you need money for taxis. If you're planning to go to other parts of the country, you need money to pay for those local. You need money to pay for that transportation. Like you don't think about it. You don't really think how much money you're spending on vacation because you just living your life,
Oh yeah. That's
but
why
it adds up.
the biggest tip to travel is budget. Right?
Yes,
Understand where you're going, how much you're looking to spend. Like if you're looking at spending, let's say $300, add an extra $300 to that,
literally.
right? And it's really about and I appreciate you sharing that story because um a lot of people don't know some of the woes of travel, right?
Oh, it ain't all cute Instagram pics when you travel.
Some people don't understand the woes of travel, and
Yeah.
people like you who have the experience, myself and other guests, give the listeners an opportunity to hear some of these woes and kind of circumvent them before they happen to them, right?
Right.
And
Right.
just through your stories, it's like, all right, don't go to Cuba on the wrong visa.
Yeah.
Make sure you get your money early, convert it to euro, and that's the thing is like one of the things about traveling is really learning from us, right?
Yes.
Reason I had asked earlier was like, what was your experience like? How did your study abroad experience change you? It opened your eyes to a much larger perspective of the world of what's
Right.
out there, and that's what this show is about: is giving people multiple perspectives on how people travel, even if they go to the same places. I
Mhm.
did the cheat code to going to Cuba. I did a cruise to Cuba. And so for me, it was
That
like,
is
all right,
definitely the cheat code. That's the easy way.
I'm here,
Everything is just
I'm here for
taken care of
two
for you.
days. Exactly. I'm here for 2 days and then I head off somewhere else for another two
Right.
days. But in those 2 days, I got to like kind of grab one of those classic car classic cars and have them drive me around town, like to
Oh yeah,
everywhere.
we did that too. So
Yeah, so
cute.
like what we ended up doing was we created our own tour without having to like go with the like, the hotel, not the hotel, the cruise line tour excursion. So we found a dope driver that was willing to take us above and beyond. And of course we tipped him,
Right. As you
free.
should.
And so, we got to see everything and we were like, yo, this is kind of, and that's kind of how I travel, right? Like another tip would be um either the driver from the airport or a driver that is
Make
nice
your
enough to have
contact.
a conversation with you, stay in contact with them, have them be the only driver for you for the entire trip.
And they will
Um,
gladly do it.
and they will gladly do it because they look. I think I went to, I think it was Cartagena. We got the driver from the airport and he was like, look, don't call nobody, just call me.
Say less.
And he gave us our own cab tour. He gave us everything. He even referred us to this guy named Freddie in Cartagena who just took us around
Oh,
all the black spots in Cartagena, taught us the history of Cartagena.
oh, I love
And
it.
and that was definitely dope in that experience. But yeah, that's amazing. Like, that was, and that's not the bad part, huh?
No, well, we initially were set to leave after like 6 days, but we had to cut our trip short because we legit ran out of money. We had just enough on our last day after we had already changed our flights. And this is why Southwest is my favorite because they don't have any change fees. So
Mm.
like if you're booking a flight and you need to either stay later or change it to earlier and leave earlier, you don't have to pay to change. You just pay for the difference between the two flights. And thankfully there was no difference. So God was on our side with that. I guess he wanted to throw us a little piece because that was so stressful. Like I could feel my blood pressure rising and I was literally having a headache for an entire like 24 hours. I was so stressed out because we're literally stuck in a country where we can't get money. My mom is freaking out. It was a whole thing.
Well,
And so we had to
gonna
change
start,
our flights. We had to leave earlier.
you probably were gonna have to start teaching English to make a couple extra bucks. You know what I mean?
Well, while I'm there.
Yeah.
Right. And I got a TOEFL certificate, so I would have been okay. I would have made money, but I was trying to get back.
I feel you.
So
So,
yeah, we had to leave. And our last day, we had literally the equivalent of $30, which was just enough to get a taxi back to the airport.
oh wow.
Yeah.
So with that said, that's crazy. So tell us about Tea Tuesdays, Travel Tea Tuesdays, and
Oh
what
yeah.
else you got going on so that people can follow you.
Yes. So, guys, I am so obsessed with chatting with other travelers too. Every Tuesday, I host an IG Live happy hour called Travel Tea Tuesday. We got a theme song and everything. So, if you want to hear it, definitely check us out. It's a lot of fun and it's a similar setting. We chit chat with over a glass of wine with other travelers, getting the travel tea because we love it. Like you said, we rely on other travelers to give us, authentic travel stories so we can learn from their experiences. And so I do that. And I was hosting a Black Travel Sip and Paint with a local artist who I met. She's actually my Howard sis. And we were doing that virtually, but that particular event has ended, and that was super duper fun. It was like a virtual sip and paint event, and we painted things related to like Black travel. It was so cute. But I'm actually planning to do a travel trivia via Zoom soon, and so I'll be releasing that information soon. And yeah, I'm hoping to release a couple domestic trips. I'm in the works of planning a couple out. So we gonna cross our fingers and hope that it can happen.
Well, keep me posted. I love a domestic trip.
Yeah.
During COVID, I was fortunate enough when the bike restore restocking came up. My lady and I bought some bikes, so we literally have just been traveling with a
Like
bike.
motorcycles?
No, 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 bicycles.
Oh, I'm like,
No, 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 not. I'm not popping like that yet.
sheesh.
I'm not popping like that yet. No, so we got some bikes,
That's so
and
cute. I love that.
we hitched them onto the back of our bikes. I think we've driven as far as Maine, and then I think as far as we've
That
taken our
is
bikes
so romantic.
was about Virginia, Richmond. So up and down up the East Coast, pretty much. And then the
Yes.
goal is to kind of start traveling with our bikes, maybe as a check bag.
I
So
love that. Oh my God. Wait, you can check a bike?
yeah, there's a way you break it down, and the way you break it down, put it in a bag. You can put it in. There's these travel bags for your bikes, so you can just.
That is the cutest thing ever. I love that.
Yep, yep.
And
So
honestly, so when me and my partner were together, it was travel that really, really kept us together. Like I said, we were long distance for a while. And so, like you're saying, like these trips that you're taking with your partner, if you're listening and you got a bae and y'all are in a rut, go
listen,
on a trip with them. Vacation sex is top two and it ain't number two. And it brings you back together. It's
so
everything.
true, but everybody can't do vacation together, right? And this was.
But that's how you know if that is your person.
You're right. If y'all
That's how
make
you
it back,
know.
if y'all make it back together, y'all good.
I'm telling you, like,
I've seen a lot of situations come back and like, yeah, so
this
shorty
is
ain't getting
cute,
no.
but I gotta go.
You know what I
But
mean?
if it's your person, if you can be in the same space as somebody for 24 hours a day because you're traveling together.
I survived COVID together. Y'all good.
Okay. But yeah, it's so essential. So if you are just starting to talk to somebody and you think they might be bae, book a trip with them.
But you know, everybody want them travel bait picks. So y'all good. Go ahead. Make it happen. Just you make sure it's the right one. 'Cause
Right.
another tip, everybody ain't meant to be your travel partner.
That's real too.
Know
That's
thyself
real.
and know thy clique.
But how could you possibly, but if you are dating someone, could you actually be with someone that didn't like to travel? I don't think I could.
That's a personal preference.
I don't think I could.
I mean, the person would be hating because you'd be going on trips without. But once again, that becomes a personal preference. You know,
I don't know if I could do it. If
listen,
y'all listening, drop it somewhere. Drop in the comments if you could date somebody. Because imagine like you love, it's not even just traveling, but it's like doing something out of your comfort zone, trying new things. When I think of somebody that legit just doesn't want to travel, I just think that they don't want to do anything. Like they don't like to try new things or do
I
something
don't I
new.
don't think people don't want to travel. It's they don't they may be too self-conscious to say they don't know how to travel. Right?
Okay.
It's a matter of understanding how to communicate with people. And if you're dating someone that says, "Oh, I've never traveled," or "I don't travel," well, you can kind of break it down in small pieces. Have you been to Jersey? Have you been to Miami? You do travel,
It doesn't have to be this
right?
elaborate
So, right.
international
And
trip.
so, you know, you start baby steps. I know people who starts we do domestic trips together, and then if we survive the domestic trip, we try to do it
Right, right,
international.
right. That's what I did too,
quickest,
right?
quickest international trip. You do a Cancun trip. Now the popping spot is Tulum, right?
Yes.
Everybody does a Tulum trip. I just came back from Aruba. This was our first international trip.
Oh, how was it? Well,
It
you
was
went like recently?
yeah, it was interesting. I might have a whole IG live on Tulum, or maybe I'll give you my snack, the tea on
Yeah.
your show.
Okay.
But it was interesting. It's different traveling under mandatory curfew, if that makes any sense.
Mm,
Um, you know, you know, mass gatherings is what makes a trip, especially like I don't mind doing a day party if I don't have to go to a party at night. And so
yeah,
imagine going to a city that is about meeting and greeting with a bunch of people,
yeah,
and then you can't. Everybody like in the restaurants. So like you don't have to wear masks outside. It's similar to here. You wear masks to be preventative, but you don't necessarily wear it to like because you have to walk around with it, right? Some countries you have to literally walk around it all the time. But I would say it would probably be better. I'm definitely looking forward to going back without the restrictions
mhm.
because we were forced to be in our hotels by 11. Everyone has to be off the streets by 11 o'clock.
Oh, wow,
Restaurants are shut down by 10. So
wow.
anybody listening to this in the future, hopefully that's not the case anymore. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Did you have to take a COVID test and everything before you went?
yep, you can take a COVID test before you go, or you can take it there. But when you take it there, you kind of have to test negative um, before you can leave your residence. So if it's and then it's a 24-hour period before you get your results. So you literally have to stay within your
Yeah, so it's worth it. You
hotel.
gotta
Yeah,
do it before. Because
yeah.
imagine if you test negative, you'll be stuck in
You
quarantine. And
positive, yeah. You'll be stuck
I mean, if you
quarantined
test
until yeah,
positive, right,
yeah, you'd be stuck and then you would have to pay at your own will, at
right.
your own expense. So, but I want to say thank you. I see you switching this up into a Atomic Travels Travel Tuesday slash T Travel Tuesdays, but it's all good. Um, I appreciate you really hopping on. Your energy was amazing.
Thank you.
And once again, this show is about making sure that people like us have our story. We can control our narrative about
Yeah.
travel and what travel looks like. And so that's really the goal. And, I'm always open to bringing people on that are willing to be just expert in how they travel. And I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing it.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Awesome.